In this video, we're going to talk about how to add, subtract both fractions and mixed numbers that have unlike or uncommon denominators. So whenever we have an adding or subtracting fractions question, we have to ask ourselves, do the denominators are they the same? So we look at this problem and we see that our denominators are 4 and 6. So they're not the same. So we have to find a common denominator. So the first thing that we have to do is ask ourselves, what can we get both 4 and 6 to be so that they're the same with multiplication? Now, some of you guys are going to be able to immediately just say, I know that both 4 and 6 can get to 12. If that is something that doesn't come as quick to you, what we can do is we can find the least common multiple between the two numbers. So on the side, I'm going to find the multiples of 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Some multiples of 6, 6, 12, 18. The least common multiple is 12. So that is going to be our common denominator. So I'm going to put 12 in my denominator. Okay, then we have to ask ourselves, we multiplied 4 times what to get 12? So 4, let me change the color here. 4 times 3 gave us 12, so we have to multiply the numerator by the same thing. So 1 times 3 is 3. Then we ask ourselves, 6 times what gave us 12? 6 times 2 is 12. So we multiply the numerator by the same thing. 2 times 2 is 4. Then we add up 3 twelfths plus 4 twelfths, and we get 7 twelfths. Okay. Our final step is to simplify. And so we have to list the factors or think of the factors for 7 and 12. And if they share any factors, then we can divide it, the 7 and 12 by that factor. We can't. The only factor they share is 1. So our final answer is 7 twelfths. Okay. All right, let's do another example. So we have 2/3 plus 4/5. So we have to ask ourselves again, what can we get both 3 and 5 to be? If you can't come up with that right away, then we can find the multiples of 3 and 5. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 5, 10, 15. 15 is the smallest one they both share, the least common multiple. So that's what our denominator is going to be. Ask ourselves, what can we multiply, or what do we multiply 3 by to get to 15? We multiply it by 5. So we multiply a numerator by 5. 2 times 5 is 10. 5 times what gets us 15? 3. So we multiply 4 times 3 and get 12. We add those up and we come up with 22 15ths. Now, we notice that 22 15ths is an improper fraction, so we have to make it into a mixed number. Okay. At this point, we kind of think of two different ways. One way is doing it mentally in our head by saying, okay, how many times does 15 go into 22, which is 1 time? How much would be left? Well, 22 minus 15 is 7, and our denominator stays the same. Another way we can do that is by division. 22 divided by 15. 15 goes into 22 once, subtracts 15, and we're left with 7. So 1 is our whole, 7 is our numerator, and 15 is our denominator. Now we are going to be subtracting fractions with unlike denominators. So let's do 6/8 minus 2/6. Again, we notice our denominators aren't the same, so we have to find a common denominator. Again, if we don't know right off the bat that 8 and 6 can both get to 24, we can find the least common multiple between the two. So 8 is 8, 16, 24, 32. 6 is 6, 12, 18, 24. 24 is the least common multiple, so 24 is going to be our common denominator. Okay, we do the same steps that we did with addition. 8 times what gives us 24? 3. 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times what is 24? 4. 2 times 4 is 8. 18 24ths minus 8 24ths gives us 10 24ths. Both 10 and 24 are even, so we know we can divide them by 2. We can also ask ourselves if they share any other factors. They do not, so let's simplify this and divide by 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5, and 24 divided by 2 is 12. They don't share any other factor but 1. So our final answer is 5/12. Okay, what we're going to do next is adding mixed numbers with unlike denominators. Okay, so we're going to do 4 and 1/4 plus 2 and 1/5. So we can just bring our whole numbers down. Ask ourselves the same question, what can we get both 4 and 5 to be? If we can't think of that right off the bat that it's 20, we can find the least common multiple between 4 and 5. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. 5, 10, 15, 20. Realize 20 is what we can get them both to be. Okay, keep doing our same step. 4 times what gives us 20? 5. 1 times 5 is 5. 5 times what is 20? 4. 1 times 4 is 4. Add up our fractions. 5 20ths plus 4 20ths is 9 20ths. And 4 plus 2 is 6. Okay. So our final step would be to look at the fraction 9 20ths and ask ourselves, can we divide 9 and 20 by anything other than 1? And 9 and 20 do not share any other factors. So let's just say that in this problem, we ended up getting 6 and 12 20ths. So let's say we got that as an answer. When we are simplifying at the end, we have to ask ourselves, what factors do 12 and 20 share? Well, 12 and 20 share 2 as a factor because they're both even, but they also share the factor 4. So we can simplify by dividing by 4 over 4. So we end up getting 12 divided by 4 is 3, and 20 divided by 4 is 5, and we keep the whole number the same. So if we had to simplify a mixed number, we would just simplify the fraction. All right, now let's say we have 1 and 5/6 plus 2 and 2/3. Now we have to ask ourselves, what can we get both 6 and 3 to be? Now, if we only need to change one of these denominators, we should do so. So I know that I can get 3 to be 6, so I'm going to keep my 5/6 the same. And now all I have to do is just change my 3. So 3 times what gives me 6? 2. So I multiply 2 times 2, and I get 4. Now, when I add it up, I get 5/6 plus 4/6 is 9/6. And then 1 plus 2 is 3. Now, I notice that 9/6 is an improper fraction, so I have to turn it 9/6 into a mixed number. So I ask myself, how many times does 6 go into 9? Once. And there are 3 left over. We could also do 9 divided by 6. 6 goes in once, subtract 6, and we're left with 3. So it's 1 whole and 3/6 left over. I also know that 3/6 is the same as 1/2. Now, common mistake is to just tell me that my answer is 1 and 1/2. But we can't forget that we still have this whole number 3 here. So we need to make sure that we take our whole number 3 and our 1 and 1/2 and combine them. So our final answer is 4 and 1/2. Okay, and that's how we add mixed numbers with unlike denominators. Now we are going to be subtracting mixed numbers with unlike denominators. So we have 5 and 6/8 minus 2 and 2/10. So I'm going to rewrite this with my whole numbers. So we have to ask ourselves, what can both 8 and 10 get to? So if I start skip counting by tens, 10, 20, 30, 40, I can realize right away that both 8 and 10 can get to 40. Eight times what gets me to 40? 5. 6 times 5 is 30. 10 times 4 gives me 40, so 2 times 4 is 8. And then I just subtract. 30 40ths minus 8 40ths is 22 40ths. And 5 minus 2 is 3. Now I can look and see if I can simplify my fraction, 22 40ths. I think about what kind of factors both 22 and 40 have. What I can do is I can just automatically divide by 2 because I know that they're both even. 22 divided by 2 is 11 and 40 divided by 2 is 20. I know that they don't share any other factors because 11 only has 2 factors, 1 and 11, and 20 only shares 1. So my final answer is 3 and 11 20ths. Okay. Now I have 3 and 2 9s minus 1 and 5 6. So I have to ask myself, what can I get both 9 and 6 to be? So 9 is 9, 18, 27. 6 is 6, 12, 18. So I can get them both to be 18. 9 times 2 is 18. 2 times 2 is 4. 6 times 5 times 3 is 15. Okay? So this is the tricky part. We know that 4 18ths cannot subtract 15 18ths. So something that we've been using in class is a regrouping strategy, similar to with whole numbers, but a little bit different when it comes to fractions. So we go over to the 3. We take 1 away from it and make it 2. So we're borrowing a whole to put into our fraction. So 1 whole in 18ths is 18. So we're going to add our denominator 18 to our numerator 4. 18 plus 4 is 22. It becomes an improper fraction, but this way we're able to do the subtraction. So 22 18ths minus 15 18ths is 7 18ths. And then 2 wholes minus 1 is 1. So our answer is 1 and 7 18ths. So when we want to regroup, we take 1 away from the whole and we add our denominator to our numerator. And then we're able to subtract. One more example that I would like to give is if we had a problem that was like 3 minus 3 1 3/4. Okay? So we don't have any fraction to take away, but we can't just automatically do 3 minus 1, and then we would still have to take away that 3/4. Okay? So this is something we did practice in class, but if we forgot, what we do is we go to the 3 and we make it a 2, and we look at what this denominator is over here. This is what we want our denominator to be. So we just make a whole here, 4 out of 4. So we took a whole and broke it up and put it in 4/4. And now we can subtract 4/4 minus 3/4 is 1/4. And then 2 wholes minus 1 whole is 1. If you have any questions, please contact me. You can comment on the video, or you can message me on Class Dojo, and I can try and give you extra examples or any other help that you need. Thank you. Have a great day.